For great ideas and practical tools you can start using tomorrow to grow your business and separate you from the competition, you've come to the right place. If you're into B2B marketing and sales, then welcome to the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. With over 60 and counting total years in the trenches of businesses small and large, they have a plethora of knowledge and experience that generate you more leads, capture more clients, ring up more sales. Well, doggone it, just make you more money. How about that? Always thought-provoking, yet dubiously entertaining. Please welcome to their respective microphones across 3 time zones, your co-ringmasters, the Dave Loomis, and not the rock star, Steve Miller.
Knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want me. Okay, that is not the beginning, but
we'll edit that out.
Hey everybody, Steve Miller, better known as Kelly's dad, not the real rock star, with my new best friend, the Dave Loomis, right? You say it.
That is correct. Dave Loomis.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it every single time. The guy's got a radio voice. He should go out.
I have a face for radio.
Face for radio. We both have faces for radio, but we should. You should get out there and doing voiceovers.
Thank you, Steve.
Be a character on some. On The Simpsons or something like that.
Yeah, there's a great documentary on Netflix called "I Know That Voice."
Yeah,
which is really fun to watch because it's the voiceover people talking about all the voiceovers they do, and it's really fun.
They're
talented people. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, very talented people. So anyway, we digress, and we pirouette is what we're doing here.
Yes.
In marketing for a gazillion years, there has been a thing called the 4 Ps of marketing.
Yeah. That was invented in early, I think Old English it goes back to, and in English, and they had the 4 Ps back then. Yes.
Yes, the 4 Ps. And I thought it would go back to the Stone Age, since you were so.
It probably does, but they weren't peas; they were like different kinds of grunts.
Grunts, yeah, the 4 grunts, yeah, exactly. Anyway, the 4 Ps are product, price, place, and promotion. Now, the thing and the reason and why we're talking about this today is because 3 of them are extremely well known. 3 of them are very focused on by most companies. And the 4th one is kind of not really. I don't think people see it as part of their marketing strategy. And that one is the P called place.
Correct.
Or another word for that would be distribution. Okay.
Right. But that distribution doesn't start with P. So they came up with
hard
place.
To do. You could make a D that looks like a P, but then it's
it would be confusing. It would be confusing.
So,
not as catchy.
Yeah. So, now it's alliteration, right? And, all right, I'm going to let you start the ball rolling on distribution. Why is it important for our listeners and viewers to pay attention to this? And, let's just talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say that you can come up with a great product. You can do all the things that we usually talk about, which is listen to the voice of the customer, come up with a great product or a service. You can brand it really well. You can price it perfectly. You can have all sorts of promotions, but how do you actually sell it then? How do you actually get it to the people that need to buy it? And that is where distribution channels in general come in. So if you want to make it easier on yourself, just whenever you think about the place in the 4 Ps, I would say think about distribution channels, and it's a plural usually. There are some e-commerce companies, obviously, that only have one channel of distribution, and that is buy it over the web and you've bought it.
Right.
But traditionally, and especially in B2B marketing, or B2B companies in general, there would be multiple ways to get your product to market. And why does that exist? Why do many companies end up with a myriad of distribution channels? And I happened to, early in my career, after advertising in Chicago, I worked for a consulting firm that specialized in B2B distribution channels.
Oh,
so I know that you have mentioned Emerson Electric before on our show, and that was one of our clients. I did a lot of studies for Emerson Electric on ceiling fans and power generation. I did all sorts of fun products for the building, electrical circuit breakers and Square D, which is a industrial company. The list goes on and on. And we were talking. We worked on channels of distribution optimization, and I would say to paint a picture in your mind, or even you can draw it out, because we did map things out often, but I still do this quite a bit. And I'll just give you a kind of a formula for thinking about different distribution channels and what you might want to put together. Here's a thought, kind of a thought exercise. So Einstein always said he did these types of things where you just sort of think about the extreme case just to get your brain around something. And so let's say that you've got, 20,000 potential customers out there for your B2B product. That's really, in some cases, that's a lot for some companies. In some cases, that's not very many for some companies. But let's just say it's 20,000 of them. To be ultra extreme, if you had the money, you could hire 20,000 individual people to go and knock on those people's doors, whether they're working in their office or their home. It doesn't matter. You would track them down like a private investigator, and you would hound them until they, that's called relationship building.
Buy or die.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You make them an offer they can't refuse.
That's right.
Okay. So that's the extreme. And of course, we can't do that in business, because we would go out of business because we would spend too much money on direct sales. So, but however, in many cases, if you're working a B2B company right now, there's a pretty good chance you have a direct sales force. And who are they calling on? It's national accounts. So these are the whales that Steve talks about. These are big old accounts that actually justify the expense of a direct salesperson. Now, they might not be calling on just one account. They might have a territory, or they might divide it by industry, or they might divide it by geography. Whatever they're dividing it on, it's still they're justified the expense of that direct salesperson, because what they sell brings in far more than the expense that the company's paying out.
Right.
The other reason why that direct salesperson is needed, and this is just a whole philosophy of distribution channels, is that the customer usually needs help picking something out. So this might be a complicated piece of equipment that maybe it has to do with racking systems in your warehouse, or conveyors or automation, and it's customized. So it's not like something that you just like go look up and say, give me one of these. You need some help. You need some help determining exactly what it is. So it's high touch. High touch is necessary. So that's another reason why you really need that direct interaction.
So what you're saying with those first two, with these first couple of examples, is that the type of product that you are selling, how you're going to more efficiently get it to market, get it to that person who's going to write you the check, can depend on say the size of the company that you're calling on.
Yep.
Like say the whales or the big moose or something like that. So the size of the company, and then also if you're doing if you customize a product, okay, that requires not, I'm not going to call it hand holding, but it requires that one-on-one working together engagement of coming up with the exact right solution. So in that case, because of the size of the company, because of the customization, then the distribution requires more of a one-on-one,
yes,
approach.
Yes, exactly. So that exists. If you were mapping this out, you might put your various distribution channels kind of in boxes across the top of a page, and at the bottom of the page, maybe put your customers, and at the bottom would be large customers with high needs, or customization, or however you want to put it. Yeah. And then you'd put a line directly from that top box of direct sales right down to those big customers.
Right. Okay? So it's a direct sale.
It's direct sale. Yep. Then it might be easiest to look at the other end of the spectrum first. So that's one side of your page. And then the far other side of your page might be internet sales, which is different, but still direct, and interestingly enough. So, but what the box that it's connecting to at the bottom, that type of customer is low need, extremely low need. Many times it's a much less expensive item or less complicated. It could be, and probably is, a smaller customer. There are exceptions. A large customer that's already bought something that's complex and is rebuying it, sometimes wants to buy it electronically. There's EDI, for many years and so forth for those electronic transactions. But for the most part, you're looking at, direct sales to large customers, direct sales to tiny customers. And then the interesting, fun stuff for me is what's all in between. And that is where you come to middlemen when you talk about distribution channels. So it's like all the people that are not big enough and not small enough need to be reached and served and explained to and sold to through intermediaries.
Right. And there are a myriad of types of intermediaries.
There are. And even B2B companies deal with some that you might not expect necessarily. So I had mentioned Square D before, which is a company that makes electrical switches and circuit breakers for your home or businesses or what have you. And those are typically sold, to big companies through direct sales, but through electrical distributors. And it's fascinating to see the flow from a company to an electrical distributor, and that electrical distributor sells to an electrical contractor, because most people, unless you're a DIYer, you're hiring somebody, which is sometimes a smart thing to do with electrical things.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And then they're installing it in a home or a business, and they're charging that contractor is charging the homeowner or the business owner or what have you for their electrical work, and that's the distribution channel flow. It would not work if you'd have to have a direct salesperson, to go to every homeowner to sell one of these things, and it's just not realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's two-step.
Correct. We talk about steps in those distribution channels. Yep. Now, another thing that happened, and this was happening long ago, and it's been just this flow, which has been very interesting, is the advent of home center stores in the whole landscape, because that threw a wrench, no pun intended, in the B2B world, because some of those electrical contractors or contractors of any kind started moving from convenience reasons, smaller ones would move from the distributor, and they'd just go to the home center store and buy some things and then install it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the DIYer, which if you look at track it from the 70s, 80s, and so forth to current, there's been a boom in that. And so these companies that made all these different things needed a distribution channel to actually reach to that consumer.
Right. And it's you're only limited by your imagination, quite frankly. You look at the different types of, and because we basically are B2B people. That's what we're looking at is, but ultimately there's an end user, and in many cases that end user is the consumer, regardless of the fact that we as B2B companies might not be dealing with the consumer or the end, that end user. Our distribution strategy is designed to finally get it to them through these other steps that we're talking about. So, and you can choose, like you say, with the home center stores, for example, companies will sell to, the Home Depots and the Lowe's and those guys, because they don't have a broad enough distribution. They're either not big enough, or they don't have a broad enough ability to do it themselves, right? Right. And I mean, it used to be that it was dealers, that you would go through dealers, and you sell to the dealers, and then the dealers would sell to the consumers, and then, but the dealers had limited selection in most cases, right?
Yes.
So like, because a dealer, for example, would say, all right, well, I can carry three line of this particular product. And so I have line A, line B, line C. All right. Well, but then there's also other companies, D, E, F, and stuff like that. And they want to sell. But if they're locked out of this dealer, then they got to go find another dealer. Right. The home center stores threw all that stuff out the window because the home centers just said, well, we'll just carry it all.
Yeah. And we've talked about branding before, but it's been very, very tricky to navigate that landscape for some of the big companies. So you think of companies like John Deere, who would sell exclusively through dealers, or Pella Windows or something like that, that would, also have high-end brands that are known for being really good. They've been around a long time. They're expensive. And they, in some cases, have gone into these home center channels. And what they do is they create a different product line that is supposedly not as high end and branded a little bit differently,
right,
with the name, so that they don't basically create too much conflict with the dealer or distributor channel. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, but it is tricky.
It is very tricky. And then you got examples like an old client of mine years ago used to work with steel. And and steel had that same dilemma, that question mark. Should we go to the home center? Should we go through the home center stores? And and they ultimately said, no, we don't want to do that. We're going to be there for the dealers. Because we're not going to try to spread it out too much, by going to home center, and also dealers have low end at the home center, high end at the dealer.
Yeah.
No. And steel just said, nope, we're just going to the dealers, and we're just giving them the good stuff, and then we're going to support them like crazy.
Yeah.
In our advertising and marketing efforts. And
I'm a huge fan of that brand. I own multiple products. This is STIHL. Yeah. And their color is orange, which Steve and I appreciate.
That's right. I don't want to say that I had any. No, I had nothing.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, I have a steel dealer that's about a 2-minute walk from my house, so I'm a big fan. So another really interesting channel to just think about or consider is the manufacturer's rep channel.
Yep.
And on your chart, if you're going from high touch to low touch, you would probably put it somewhere to the side of direct sales. So let's say you can't afford a direct salesperson or a team to go out, and it makes no sense because they'd have to be calling on too many people. They can't cover that much. But what if you gave your product to somebody that's going to be calling on hospital ABC in his territory all the time, but instead of that person just selling your product, they're selling a whole bunch of other products also.
Right.
And so they're a rep for a multiple manufacturer.
They're an independent manufacturer's rep, and they typically, they're their own company, and they, like you say, they represent multiple lines, and you hope that they want to sell yours.
well, right. And then you do things as a manufacturer to incentivize them to sell your things, so that you create spiffs and deals and things so that they'll want to, quote unquote, push your product. And this is where we get into, if you've ever heard the terms push versus pull marketing.
Yep.
Push happens from the top down. So at least on my chart, the way I explained it, you're having others strongly suggest your product to the people who are going to buy it from them.
Mm-hmm.
And little does that unsuspecting person know that the person who's pushing it, quote unquote, is probably getting compensated.
Yeah, absolutely.
For doing that. Now, pull is a different strategy, which is trying to advertise or promote directly to that buyer. And then the buyer is going and seeking that thing out and pulling it from whatever that distribution channel is.
Right. Demand generation is what you're doing there is in pull marketing. You could say that push marketing might be like supermarkets. Products get on a shelf, and they locate them on certain specific shelves for specific reasons in locations, because they're trying to push it out to you. And in fact, at supermarkets, for the most part, the products that are in demand are in the lower shelves, because they know that if you're looking for Cheerios is going to be on the bottom shelf because you're looking for Cheerios. But there might be an alternative to Cheerios that they want you to buy because it's got a higher profit margin, but they put that up at eye level.
All right. And someone's paying for that shelf space.
Slotting
allowances. I've worked for Hamilton Beach that sold appliances to the big box retailers like Target and Walmart. Right. And people don't really realize this, but if you were going in and you're trying to, say, hey, we've got a coffee maker, and they only sell 5 coffee makers at different price points. Mm-hmm. And we wanted that $19.95 price point, and we've got to get the Black & Decker one out of there, or we've got to get the Mr. Coffee out of there, something. Well, you've got to win the buyer over at Walmart or Target. Second of all, you probably have to pay some slotting allowances, and also then you have to buy their inventory of the product that you're replacing.
Right.
And then get rid of it for them. I mean, they got a pretty good deal going.
There's some pretty, the retailers have some pretty sneaky ways of making a little bit more money from you as well. Now, you talked about manufacturers reps. We didn't talk about distributors as a kind of an extension on the manufacturer's rep. Yes. Where the manufacturer's rep is a representative of your company, an official representative of your company. While distributors they're resellers. Okay. They actually they choose your product, they inventory it, and then they have their own salespeople who go out and try to empty their shelves. Okay. And I'm sure, and of course, the people who are watching us or listening to this, they know all this stuff. But the catch to all of this is the good news with the bad news. with these things. Like with both manufacturers, reps, and distributors, the ugly news, the ugly truth is they only sell what sells easily.
Right. Path of least resistance.
That's right. And if you get in with somebody, whether it's a rep or a distributor, in the beginning, they will go out and they will certainly try to push your products. But after a while, if your product is not easy for them to sell, then they back off. They back off of that, and that's kind of a how it works. It's just kind of how it works.
Right.
Put yourself in their shoes. Their salespeople are out there. Most of their salespeople and manufacturers reps as well. They work on commission, and or maybe but a little bit of commission, and they're working off of quotas and that stuff. And so they're not going to work that hard, for you. And that's kind of the downside of when you have a middleman like that, helping you.
That's true. It's probably an incentive for companies themselves to create products or services that are easy to explain, where the value is obvious.
And again, where the value is clear, the decision is easy, where your branding, it becomes really important. I have a client right now, a new client of ours, who asked us to work with them on their marketing strategy, and then they came back and they sell through distributors, and then they came back recently and they said, we did a survey of buyers. I mean, end users, the buyers of the product, right? And at a recent conference, and they didn't even know who we were.
The distributors aren't talking about them.
The distributors aren't talking about them. And they're like going, so how are these guys supposed to be helping us if the customers out there don't even know who we are, right? And I said, well, that's part of the issue here. Is
right.
That we
have if they made money from you, they would be talking about you if they could make some money from you.
If it was easy for them to make money. So if you're going to work with groups like manufacturers, reps, and distributors, you need to be working, and I don't want to call it an end around, but you need to, at least my philosophy is always to try to develop pull marketing as best as possible.
If you can, in addition, right? Because if somebody is coming in the door every other day and requesting something, coming in the door of a dealer or a distributor or asking a sales, or even in retail and asking for it, and you have to say, no, we don't carry that. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, maybe we should carry that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if no one ever asks for a certain product or brand,
that's right.
Then they won't have the idea to carry it unless, of course, you introduce it to them and put incentives in place, and that you could get some short-term sales out of it. But like you said, unless they love doing it and it's easy, then it's going to be a tough.
Yeah, and that's the old 80-20 rule. That 20% of the products in a distributor's warehouse makes them their money. Makes 80% of their money, right? 20% of the products are easy to sell. Okay, the other 80% of the products sit on the shelf. For the manufacturer's rep, 20% of the products are easy to sell, and the other 80% of the lines that they represent, they don't spend that much time on them. And and so for me, it's like distribution is a big discussion. You can find new profit centers, you can find new roads into a marketplace. Maybe open up some markets that you haven't been in before. But ultimately, if you are not going direct, if you're not going right straight to that end user yourself, then you, in my opinion, and I say this to everybody, you have to figure out some kind of a pull strategy to try to help it through the chain. Right?
Absolutely. One last thought about coming full circle on the internet side of things. I think that there's a lot of companies still that are not selling directly to end users via the internet, industrial companies, and for good reason so far. One of the reasons is a lot of industrial equipment has to be serviced. And again, kind of like the sales argument that we were talking about, it's way too expensive for an individual company to have its own service force that they pay that goes out into the field to fix everything that they sell. Therefore, that's a really big role of dealers in a lot of cases, is that they can sell things, but then they also service them on behalf of the companies. So, and that's where a lot of those dealers make their money on the service. A lot of the companies themselves are making a lot of money on the parts that, and maybe not even as much on the individual item that they sell originally. However, there is a lot of pressure out there right now for even large industrial manufacturers to sell directly to end users around the dealers for a lot of reasons. Just there are even some super small customers that even dealers can't reach. So that would be one argument. But then it's just a convenience thing. We're all human beings that when we're not working or it's not Cyber Monday or something like that, and we're buying things, we're online all the time buying things. And so, the younger people are getting into buying positions in companies and they need to buy other B2B items.
Right.
And they're saying, well, I don't understand. Why can't I just buy this online?
Yeah.
So we need to serve them, but at the same time, we don't want to completely alienate the dealers that serve a great purpose servicing our product and being out in the field. Yeah, I've heard of cases where companies are actually compensating dealers for sales that they make that the company makes directly, that the dealer had nothing to do with whatsoever. It just happens to be in their territory. But they don't want to alienate that dealer.
Right. So, distribution is a very, quite frankly, it's a very big topic. It's a very difficult topic to talk about in 25 minutes.
It is. But think about providing access to as many people in your target markets or segments as possible.
Right.
And doing it in a efficient and cost-effective way. And then you'll end up with some of the options that we talked about.
Right. And I think you were alluding to e-commerce, which I think is probably the number one overlooked channel that B2B does not really look at very much. And they should. They really should.
Yeah, I'm involved in a couple of those projects right now.
Yeah. I mean, if Amazon can be selling equipment,
there you go.
Online, Amazon Business.
Yes, they are.
You got 5,000, 10,000. I think I've seen up to $50,000 products on that Amazon site. If Amazon thinks they can do it.
Yeah. And they have these product managers, just like in other companies. You don't really think about it unless you know, but they have product managers for different, like my niece was a product manager or is a product manager for Amazon. And her category is undercarriage of automobiles. So all the parts that you would have in an undercarriage of an automobile. And, their goal is to create knockoff products also. Sure. That they sell against and optimize certain things, picks, values. So it's a big business. For sure. That's for another day.
And that's for another day. And speaking of another day, we're going to wait till another day to come back and see you guys. That's enough. That's enough for today. My head is spinning a little bit trying to figure all this stuff out.
God, we don't know place. We started with place and now we're completely lost.
That's right. Exactly right. So thank you again for joining us on the B2B Marketing and Sales podcast, which I neglected to mention at the very beginning. And with my good buddy, Mr. Voice. The Dave Loomis.
The Dave Loomis.
The Dave Loomis. That's right. And, we'll be back again next week with another episode. In the meantime, if you like us. All right. And share
Subscribe. Yes.
Subscribe. Click that subscribe button. Put a thumbs up in there. Got questions? Our contact information is in the description of the podcast, and you can track us down that way. I know. Yep. I know somebody already tracked you down. We should talk about that.
We should. Next episode. Feel free. Someone picked up the phone and gave me a call, found my number and called me, and we talked for about 15 minutes and had a great conversation. And so we'll, if you have questions, we could do a whole episode coming up sometime on listener questions.
Submit questions.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, thank you again. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Sounds great, Steve. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, the source for B2B marketing and sales insight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave these old guys a 5-star rating. Check the show notes for any links and contact information. You can always contact us by going to b2bmarketingsalespodcast.com. Thank you, and keep on marketing, keep on selling.